So he says, "B'Torah parshas Noach muzbar sha'Mabul lo hoya rak oynish." Because if it would have been a punishment, so then harbe drachim l'makim, the Eibishter could have done many different ways. He could have gotten rid of the Torah Mabul. We even see in different generations what he did in other times. What did he do with Migdal Bavel? What did he do with the Torah Flogya? What did he do with Koirach? All these different, the Eibishter, he never repeats himself, I noticed. It's always, he has a unique thing. And according to Chassidus, it makes sense, because Chassidus always explains how the punishment fits the crime. There's a connection. Why the Bnei Koirach were swallowed up by Adama? Because it had to do with their particular machshava gang, etc., etc. So over here, the Alter Rebbe explains in Torah that wasn't just an oynish, alagam pe'ula shel tahara. It was metired the world who tier as oilam. Lefnei Mabul isa aretz loy tahara v'Mabul hevel taharasa. So it wasn't just about the people. It's not just what the people did wrong, or even the animals, like Rashi said, did wrong. But it said 3 tfachim of the Oimek HaMachresha, where the plow would reach, also nishtashtashu, also became flooded away, because the whole world was corrupt, was mushchas. 3 tfachim of the Oimek HaMachresha. The Machresha plow reaches down in the earth 3 tfachim wide, 3 tfachim deep. So that's why it said, what the Mabul did was that whole 3 tfachim, it also messed up. It also erased.
Corrupt.
It was corrupt, and because of that, it has to be erased, because it wasn't enough Torah. L'chein, nimshcha yiridus ha-Mabul arbaim yoim. Dugmas ha-Mikvah sheyesh b'arbaim sa. Even though they were in the Teivah a lot longer than arbaim yoim, but the actual rain coming down was for 40 days. The 40 days corresponds to the 40 saw that make up a mikveh. Dugmas ha-Mikvah sheyesh b'arbaim sa. V'l'chein nikra Mabul mei noyach naicha derucha. In other words, like this, we know the Zohar says a very interesting title. It says Noach, the meaning of the word Noach, except for it says at the end of the previous parsha, Zeinach meinu mitzvah yedenu. So the Zohar says Noach is the word Naicha deruach, derucha nachas ruach. So how can you say that Noach means nachas ruach? And the Navi in the Haftorah it's going to say Ba'avur, something Mei Noach. He calls the waters of Noach. Yeah, because the waters themselves are a nachas ruach. Why they are nachas ruach? Because the waters of the Mabul may have been precipitated by something bad, but since it's not just an oynish, it's a tada, it's a purification, so therefore we call it Mei Noach. It's waters that have to do with nachas ruach. It has to do with cleansing and purification. So the Alter Rebbe explains also in Torah Kein gam tirdes v'daigus ha-parnasa ha-nekrois b'shem mayim rabim ki-mevur bar chava b'Torah. When a person has all these different types of worries and concerns and all types of burdens of making a living, they are called mayim rabim. And the Alter Rebbe over there explains the mayim rabim, they're flooding his mind, they're not letting him concentrate, not letting him think. Even though externally we look at it as something that's a negative, I want to concentrate on good things. I want to concentrate on my davening. I want to concentrate on my learning. And instead I have all these tirdas of parnos, I have these mayim rabim that seemingly are disruptive. So the Alter Rebbe says, on the one hand, that's true, and we need to know how to put that in its place, and we need to protect ourselves from it. We have to go into a Teivah, like we're going to speak about later. But, on the other hand, it functions just like the Mabul. Just like the Mabul was not just a punishment, but was also a cleansing, a tada. The same thing, when a person goes through his own Mabul, his own Mayim Rabim, it's also a matter of cleansing. And now the Rebbe is going to, and that's all the Rebbe says. Takes the Rebbe and tries to explain it in our in our language that we should be able to understand. What does it mean that the tirdas that we have on our head, the daigis, acts like a cleansing, like a mikveh? Ois beis. HaKesher bein daigis ha-parnasa l'Mabul mikvahu, ha-toichen ha-pnimishu mikvahu, Haizbatlus ha'atzmis. Keloshna Rabba, sheyitbol b'mei hadas hatoir. You would think sometimes when you learn Rabbah that it's like a chassidus verbrengen sometimes. But he uses the term that a person needs to be toivel themselves. But what are they being toivel themselves? Not in water, but mei hadas hatoir, in the knowledge and understanding of Hashem and so on. What does that do? That causes the person to lose themselves, to lose their yeshus, to lose their ego. What's this measurement of mem saw? Why does 40 saw make a mikveh kosher? Because the Chazal say shekol gufay oil bahem. That means that the entire body can be surrounded by it. That's why a shear of a mikveh is 40 saw, because for an average body, this is the bare minimum to totally cover a body. So we see that the idea of a mikveh is complete immersion, completely inserted into something. And Teivah is also oisis habitel. Kloimar haizbatlos ha'atzmi shalo admat toivel. Yoitzeres by his alus lias kli l'kedusha. V'zeu gam ha'toichen ha'pnimi shebedaigus ha'parnasa shehein germes amnam bilbul fisha. Taka temporarily, it might disrupt and be something that disturbs. He leaves himself behind. He loses himself. So that's the idea of the Mabul, the Mayim Rabim, the Tirdas HaParnasa, that just like the actual May Mabul that happened at the times of Noach cleansed and purified, the same thing, our personal Mabul, our personal Mayim Rabim is also something that causes our cleansing because it brings us to a higher state through bit. This is a very Yishmak word that the Rebbe often says. And I think it's more of a chiddush of the Rebbe. I don't remember seeing this nekuda, this word, in other places. Where the Rebbe says certain negative things, that they have a positive reason. So the Rebbe says, a moment is enough. Whatever that positivity you need to get out of it, if you are get the message on the first minute, there's no reason to go further. That's it. The negative thing accomplished what it had to accomplish. So therefore, that when I have these worries of making a living and so on, all these bilbulim, and I realize that all of this is just to purify me, so that I should immerse myself and be mevatel myself more to the Eivishter, yatsa bazeh yidei chabasai. Doesn't have to wait till some other giluyim come along. He could have literally that it should be now nayach, it should be now nachas ruach, it should be comfortable both physically and spiritually. This is also connected with what the Rebbe a lot of times brings down, that it says, Eila toildus noyach, noyach ish tzadik. Why does it say twice the word noyach? Could have said Eila told us noyach ish tzadik tam hoye b'deroisav. So one of the explanations is, and it's also I'm trying to remember if it's a zoyer or a medrash, that it's neichel el yoinim v'neichel tachtoinim. But is it a zoyer or is it a medrash? Don't remember right now.
But he brings it out in Mayim Rab.
Yeah, right. So one nachas ruach is for lamaila, and one nachas ruach is for down near lamata. So one of the explanations is the way the Rebbe says over here, that the mabul, if a person takes it as what it's supposed to be, that it's supposed to be a mikveh to make me a keli for a higher level beruchnius, so it will function in two things. Both it will be a nachas ruach for spiritual, it will help me be nis'ala in the ruchnistic type of inyanim, it will be neichel el yonim, and also it will be a nachas ruach in gashmias, because it's only a temporary thing. There's no reason why a yid should have it bad begashmias if it's only temporary to get me out of myself. once I get myself out of myself, so I can go and have a physical life that's Gishmak and Nachas Ruchdik. Alter Rebbe goes on, Dalet, Hamayim haZeidonim Shalom Mabul Nechlokim L'Shnei Chalokim. Aleph Tohim Rab, it says the water came up from the deep, from under the ground. Beis, it says Arubas HaShamayim, that the windows of heaven, the skylights of heaven opened up. Meaning that water came both from below and from above. Kach gam hatirdis hamevalvelois nechlokis b'shnei chalokim elam. This is a very interesting sikha, because this sikha, at the end it says, the Rebbe was addressing, if I remember correctly, it doesn't say it here, it says in the later page, he was addressing askonim that were involved in supporting and raising funds for yeshivas, for Teivah Chetmimim or something like that. So, based on this, we'll understand more the theme, what the Rebbe is talking about up here. Tahoim Rabba, the waters that come from beneath, Tirdes Minyanim Gashmim Pechusim, Tirdes Haparnasa V'Dameim. That's one type of level of Tirdes that we were talking about before. Pashat, making a living. Making a living is a low thing, like the waters that come from under the ground. Arubas Hashemayim, Tirdes Minyanim Beruchnim Nailim. What does it mean, Minyanim Ruchnim Nailim? What type of Tirdes is it? Kaskonis Siburis V'Kadoima. In other words, like these people that were raising funds for Teivah Chetmimim, they're involved in spiritual things, they're involved in good things, they're involved in Askonis Siburis. Hamatridim as Adam, but still, they're disturbing the person. Melimar HaTorah V'Kiyam HaMitzvos V'Poil. So, there is the parnasa that's not letting the person daven the way he's supposed to daven and learn the way he's supposed to learn. And then there's a guy who says, parnasa is not my problem. I'm dealing in an important thing. I'm dealing with mitzvahim, I'm dealing in supporting yeshivas, and that running around and raising funds for the yeshiva the whole time is not letting me involve myself the way I'm supposed to be in davening and learning and mitzvahs. So the Rebbe says, true, Omnam yesh la'asik b'tzorchei tzibur, aber ein ledavar ligroim la'afrois b'limud ha'toyra b'kiyum ha'mitzvah b'poil. Ha'inyan sheb'mitzvahs hu shal yodam magim leva'atem adveikim b'Hashem v'lekeichem chayim kulchem hayoyim. The idea of mitzvahs is the dveikus. Hein mechabris es ha'odam ha'mekayim ha'kadosh baruch hu. U'memela Hein machdiris boy chayes alaki. That's the connection. It says, Atem adveikim b'Hashem alakeichem. That's why chayim kulchem hayoyim. So the dveikis, the fact that they're connected, that makes them have the chayes alaki. Therefore, I could be doing the best and greatest thing, but if I'm not doing fully what I'm supposed to do in the dveikis to Hashem, so I'm lacking that chayes. If he doesn't have the basic, if he's not charged, if he's not plugged in, he cannot have the true chayes halakhi that he's supposed to have. The Rebbe says like this: a person that says, I don't have time to do mitzvahs, I don't have time to daven, etc., etc., because I am busy raising funds for yeshivas and so on. So he says, it's l'chatchila something that has a mistaken foundation. It's coming from the nefesh bahamis. What's the proof that it's coming from nefesh bahamis? That he hafra limud ha'Torah v'kiyam mitzvos v'fi halacha m'vares b'shulchan davar zeh uvadi hipucha shel kedusha. The ma'aseh b'poil, the b'chein. If something brings me closer to doing Torah mitzvahs, so that I know that that activity is a good activity. If I'm using that as an excuse to chas v'sholom not do what I'm supposed to do in Torah mitzvahs, so then that means that there's something wrong in my connection with the Eibishter, or something wrong with that excuse at least. So the Rebbe says another thing. Eventually, when a person's approach is that because of spiritual things, spiritual activities, he is not involved in what he's supposed to be doing for himself in Torah and Mitzvos, so then it's not just going to be spiritual activities that are going to take him away. So then eventually it's going to be the Toraim Rabbah, it's going to be the physical things that are going to be pulling him away from Kedusha. So what is the medicine for this? Hatrufa l'mei Mabul, hein shel Toraim Rabbah, v'hein shel Aruv Shamayim, boyel Teivah. And here's a famous word concerning what the Baal Shem Tov says. Teivah, Mefarish Baal Shem Tov, Teivah is ha-Torah v'atfilah. Boyel Teivah, ala adam lavi al toich, oisis ha-Torah v'atfilah. What does it mean to come into oisis ha-Torah v'atfilah? Just like in a physical Teivah, when you come inside, you are inside, and the thing surrounds you completely. A person could daven, could learn, but he doesn't feel that he's totally immersed in it. He doesn't feel like he's surrounded by it. Comes the Baal Shem Tov and says, Boyel Teivah, that means he has to be surrounded by these letters of Torah and Tefillah. V'oz kaim ha'betochen shenoharis lo yishtafua, v'noyach ish tzadik u'bnei beisi yisharu b'shleimusam. The Mamorim of on Parshas Noach, starting from the Maimon Torah Oir, including the Maimon that you were talking about from the Rebbe, talks about Mayim Rabim Layuchlo Chavas Ha'avav and Naharis Lo Yishtafua. So that Naharis Lo Yishtafua, that fact that Noach was able to be protected, was because he was surrounded. If he wasn't surrounded, if it would have been an open Teivah, if it would have been open from the top or open from the side, he wouldn't have survived. He says the only way how he survived was because he was completely surrounded. The same thing, we have to be surrounded completely by the Oisis HaTorah, Oisis HaTfilah. And we see this in Pashat Al Pi Halacha, what a Yid is supposed to do every morning. Lefichach Seder HaYom Hu Shemiyad B'Kom Ad Mishnasai Ter Mikanse La Esk Iskei HaOlam L'Mayim Azadoinim Oimer Hu, the first thing he says is Maidan Il Fanacha Chol Shechzarte B'Nishmasi. What does that mean? He comes to the recognition, everything I'm doing and everything I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day, it's not me. Because my whole chayis came from the Eibishter. So that's his first attitude, his basic foundational attitude towards the entire day, is it's not me, it's all the Eibishter. The Rebbe asks a simple question. Why does he have to every single day make this bracha? He knows he's going to go into the closet. There's hanging over there his pants, his shirts, whatever. He has everything he needs. What does he have to thank the Eibishter for it? It's there already. Maybe someone that still doesn't have his clothes or is going out to buy new clothes for whatever reason, so then maybe he has to make that bracha. But if you have the clothes hanging in a closet, why are you making a bracha on it? The simple type haroyes hanoilad means that a chacham is someone that calculates what's going to happen in the future, and therefore he doesn't just rely on whatever enjoyments he has now. He thinks about down the line what will be with this thing. Will it bring good thing or chashom not? But Chassidus teaches, what's it mean? Haroyes hanoilad me'ayin liyesh. He sees how the world is born me'ayin liyesh. B'chol rega v'rega. Yodehu sheb'chol rega mishava yesh me'alakus. And because of that, until I actually put on the clothes, and even after I put on the clothes, it wasn't here. Because a second before it didn't exist. Like he's going to bring a story from the Zohar. Move by Zohar. Shrav Yesa Sava Rogel Hoyel Ispal She Malach Hashbaruchas Mezoinoi Gam B'Shah Sha'amaznoi Muchel Lefonov V'loi Hoya Oichel of Neit Filazu. He used to daven to the Eibishter even when the food was right in front of him, that the Eibishter send him his food. What do you mean send me the food? It's right over there. L'chura ma'moten l'tfila b'kol s'amaz ma'kadosh baruch hu b'shah sha'amazon mochen kvar. Achin yana hu hanivra k'shal atzmaik hoifech kol rega layim v'efes. Every moment we're turning it to nothing. Every moment, everything around us is turning back to nothing. How does it exist? Rak ma shakadosh baruch hu mechadish haisei tamid betuvei. Kakasav mechadish betuvei v'choyim tamid ma'aser bereishis. Lachen yesh tzorech betfila bakasha gam kishamaychel muchel an hashulchan v'chem mishar tzorchi adam, like we said before, mal b'sharumim. Mishum shamaychel mitzad atzmai nepach kol regel ayin v'efes. It's like, now you see it, now you don't. Yeah, you're sitting in front of your bowl of cereal. You don't know that it's going to be here the next second. You're about to reach a spoon in and eat from it. It can disappear the next second because that's what actually is happening. Every moment it's actually disappearing. But the Eibishter is returning it.
You're praying that it doesn't go from yes to ayin. You don't want it to disappear.
Or you're praying that they just keep on turning it back from the ayin that it's in to the yesh. Ubagdamas tfilazu toich yediyah sha'agashmi l'chesha'atzmai ein lo kiyum klal. Why does the gashmi have no kiyum? Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. If you know that the thing is constantly being brought into being, ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu tzarich tamid l'chadshei, u'shemetzias ha'olam yiraknei l'hasham s'chavana al yoyna v'chvoidi barasi v'goymer. Why did the Eibishter constantly do this to the world? He did this for his honor. He did it so we should have a connection to the Eibishter. He's not going through all the trouble to every single moment make the world yesh ma'ayin for no reason. He did it for a purpose, l'chvoidi, for his purpose. Therefore, yeshna afsharas lasik bi'nyane ha'olam v'lachshish mamayim azedoinim. Why do I need to worry about whatever troubles are bothering my mind, whether it's Tahoi Merabah, whether it's Harubas Hashemayim? Now I have to be totally immersed in what Hashem created me for. Because that's the whole reason He's making every single part of the world that I'm worried about yesh ma'ayin, because He wanted me to learn. He wanted me to daven. He wanted me to do mitzvahs. So I can't let those things in the world that seemingly are confusing me stand in the way of the purpose for which David is just constantly making my food and making my clothes and so on. Lifnei hatfilah, before we daven, what's given, what's taken for granted is the world. I see a world around me. That's what's taken for granted. If you take the world for granted, so then you take on hasafik. The idea is, it's brought down that before a person learns Chassidus, they say, the world exists. If the world exists, so everything should be allowed, except for things that I know for sure is not allowed. And you see a lot of times people have that type of attitude. Unless you could show me black on white that it's totally usher, prove it to me that it's usher. That's an approach before we have this idea and this awareness that Hashem is creating every single moment the world for me to use it for Kiddush. Yes, Neiraka Kadosh Baruch Hu Mechadish Oila Ma'ayin Vev Sam Muchlet Hashem HaKavana Shon Sava Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael Baruch Dir V'Tachtoinu. So what is the main operative part of the world? Not the world, but what Hashem wanted from this world, that He wanted to have a dira. U'lefi ha'nochazu hare mitzias hirak ma shemesayeya lemimush kavanazu. What is truly existing then? Since the whole purpose is for the dir b'tachtonim, so only something that is in concert with dir b'tachtonim, that's a real existence. Everything else is fake. Everything else is not real because it's not fulfilling the purpose for which the Eibishter is the whole time making this world. And therefore, azaya maskani yafucha. So a person looks at the world a different way. Masha asur v'soyse l'kavana asur b'hechlet. Because excess things, luxuries, does that serve the intention? It doesn't serve the intention. So it should be not something I should be going after. The Yitzhahara is telling him, you need this? He says, so you got to tell the Yitzhahara, Havei Raya, bring a proof that you need it. You want to have a connection with the world that's not based on godliness. First, you have to prove your case. The chazakah goes with the one who's the real Baal Boss, which is the Eibishter. Doesn't sound that good in Hebrew. In Yiddish, it says, was metar tar man doch nicht. Und was me meg darf man echt nicht. I don't know. The Hebrew doesn't have it. Okay. וזוי שמשמעו של בויל הטבע, לובו אל תויך טבעס התוירה והתפילה, ולהסתלמד מוקף בהם. Why? תויך הנוחת שעיקר המציאס הוא תוירה תפילה. ושאר העניונים הם רק אמצעים להם. So, the emtsoi that the other things in the world are can be in different ways. ואם אף שישנה יססקס בעניונים גשמים מהצורך בגוף הברי, הרי היא עבודת Hashem. So then, when he's involved in the physical things, because you need to have money, so you should be able to have food, so you should be able to serve the Eibishter. So then, that also is part of avodas Hashem. A inyan l'shem avodas Hashem, or it's l'shem shamayim. The Rebbe always talks about the difference that the thing itself he knows godliness in it, or l'shem shamayim, the thing itself he doesn't see the alakus, but he sees that it's used for alakus. Derech hayichida li pater Mabul hein mitayim rabba v'hein ma'arubas hashamayim hiboy ala Teivah. Sha'oz kol davar she'ein lo inyan shal kedusha ein lo makom. He's surrounded by the Teivah. Anything that has nothing to do with Teivah, that's abgefrekt, like they say in Yiddish. It's out of the question. B'chol ha'pratim sheyesh b'hem tzoyrech hein ba'ofen shal b'chol drachecha da'ayum. Okay, we'll stop over here.